Breaking news as Christian Horner is sacked by Red Bull after more than 20 years as its team principal, with Laurent Mekies having been announced as his replacement. From Racing News 365, my name is Nick Golding, and joining me for this special, sudden, dramatic bombshell F1 update is none other than lead editor Ian Parks. Ian, I don't quite know what word to use because what a dramatic Wednesday morning it has been in the world of Formula One. Christian Horner, after more than 20 years as Red Bull's team principal and CEO, has been sacked. Speechless.
Relieved of his operational duties is the wording in the Red Bull statement this morning. That's coming from Red Bull HQ in Austria, by the way, just to let people know, not Red Bull Racing, because obviously Red Bull HQ effectively runs obviously the two Formula One teams. It has those both under its wing. So obviously now we've seen quite a merry-go-round. So as you say, Christian Horner, gone, bombshell. Let's just use that word because I think you've got it right. No, it's one of those that's right up there, Nick, with Lewis Hamilton going to Ferrari at the start of last year. No one saw it coming. So yes, bombshell, dynamite, unbelievable, quite a shock. And obviously what we've seen now, Christian Horner's gone. Laurent Mekies, team principal of Racing Bulls, has now moved across to become the new team principal and CEO of Red Bull, and filling the shoes of Laurent Mekies at Racing Bulls is an F1 stalwart, a man who's been around for 24 years in the F1 world, and Alan Permain has taken on that role. So yes, quite a merry-go-round at Red Bull this morning. But you've got to think that what struck me quite immediately is the fact that not only have Red Bull got rid of Christian Horner, but they very quickly got the other dominoes to fall behind him in appointing Laurent and then naturally getting Alan to step up as replacement for Laurent. Now, one of the other key points I want to raise as well is that, and naturally I have to credit Martin Brundle at Sky Sports F1 for this, is that Martin Brundle gave an interview to give his reaction. And Martin said in his comments that he'd contacted Christian, told him he was sorry to read the news, sad that he was going. Naturally, could he do an interview with him or at least speak with him before he was going to go live on Sky Sports News to give his reaction? He was unable to do that, but the only reaction he did get out of Christian Horner was that Horner told Martin Brundle that he had been given, quote unquote, no reason for his departure.
And what's staggering is that, as I mentioned, Christian has been Red Bull's team principal since the very beginning, back in 2005. I mean, Laurent Mekies is just the second Red Bull team principal that the team has ever had. That in itself is quite staggering because it highlights the longevity and the partnership that Christian and Red Bull have had for 2 decades.
He was the longest serving team principal in Formula One. Can't quite think who that mantle now goes to.
Toto.
Maybe Toto? Must go to Toto. I was just going to say Toto, and just as you were saying that. So yeah, so that now falls on Toto Wolff. But yes, I mean, fabulous record for Christian Horner. You got to think he helped that team win 8 Drivers' World Championships, 4 with Seb Vettel, of course, initially, then the 4 most recently with Max. 6 constructors titles, 124 victories overall, 107 pole positions, and 287 podium finishes. So that's quite some record over 2 decades. But of course, has this been coming? Well, you could arguably go back to the start of last year, of course, when we had the equally as dynamic news when, of course, it was announced that Christian Horner was under investigation by the Red Bull hierarchy following a complaint made against him by a female employee for inappropriate conduct. That dragged out for quite some time. Of course, there was huge fallout with the Verstappen family. Jos, of course, being the most prominent figure, really wanted to get rid of Christian at that particular stage, and he couldn't understand why he was hanging onto his position given this news. Christian managed to ride it out, went through both an internal and an external investigation, that external investigation conducted by a member of the King's Council here in the UK, which is a very senior legal position in the United Kingdom. So, as I say, managed to ride through that, get through that. But then, of course, the form of Red Bull, despite Max winning his fourth driver's title last season, has really dipped quite considerably. The understanding is, from what we've been led to believe, is that Christian has lost the support of a long-time ally in the Thai majority owner, a gentleman by the name of Chalerm Uvidia, who is the founder of Red Bull, the drinks company, of course. And he owns 51%. So naturally, with him in his corner, Christian Horner was in a strong position. However, it seems to be that Christian Horner has entrenched himself, or had entrenched himself, into such a position at Red Bull that he was not really willing to make the changes that both the Thai owner, Chalerm Uvidia, and the Mateschitz family, who have the other 49% ownership of Red Bull in terms of the Formula One racing team. And that now has led to, as I say, those two factions coming together, and with Christian, as I say, kind of entrenching himself in this position that he felt changes didn't really need to be made, that now this decision has been made to effectively sack him, as I say, relieve him, again, I'll use that phrase again on the Red Bull statement, relieve him of his operational duties.
We are, of course, recording this video just over an hour and a half after the announcement was made, of course, that Horner and Red Bull were parted ways with immediate effect. So we've had a little bit of fallout so far in terms of statements, one of which, Ian, from one of Red Bull's biggest senior figures, Oliver Mintzlaff.
Yeah, and naturally, I'll just quickly call this up so I can help read it correctly. Oliver Mintzlaff, yes, real, as you say, real senior figure inside Red Bull. He's the CEO of corporate projects and investments. So effectively, the Red Bull family, or that Red Bull arm in particular, under the Mateschitz family, they predominantly oversee all the sporting matters. As I say, 49% of the company is owned by them, the other 51% by the Red Bull drinks company owner, Chalerm Uvidia. But naturally, as you can appreciate, after 2 decades, it's only right and respectful that they've given Christian Horner due credence for everything that he's achieved over the years. And I'll read the statement out in full because it's only short, but it is worth doing. We would like to thank Christian Horner for his exceptional work over the last 20 years. With his tireless commitment, experience, expertise, and innovative thinking, he has been instrumental in establishing Red Bull Racing as one of the most successful and attractive teams in Formula One. Thank you for everything, Christian, and you will forever remain an important part of our team history. So at least, as I say, despite whatever might have gone on these past 18 months or so, as I say, due respect and due credit given to Christian for everything that he has done for Red Bull over these past 2 decades.
It will be very interesting to see, actually, whether we see Horner back in F1. Obviously, as you mentioned a couple of minutes ago, Ian, last year in particular, there were some disagreements, some rifts between Horner and the Verstappen family, in particular, obviously, Max's dad, Jos. So going forwards now, obviously, the big story is being, will Max stay with Red Bull or leave for Mercedes? With Horner gone, is it more likely he will stick with the Milton Keynes-based outfit?
You can only assume so, Nick. As you've pointed out, as I mentioned earlier, yes, there was this huge fallout between Christian Horner and Jos Verstappen. I remember being in Bahrain for the opening Grand Prix of last season and just watching Christian and Jos have this quite a ding-dong, it's fair to say. Jos came out in no uncertain terms and made it clear that Christian Horner needed to be removed. He felt that with him still in charge, that all it was doing was undermining Red Bull Racing as a team at that particular stage. I remember Jos even going so far as to suggest that if Christian stayed, he would pull Max out. Now Christian has gone, you can assume that one very happy person is Jos Verstappen. So that being the case, we know that, of course, Max Verstappen has this really solid relationship with Helmut Marko, the Red Bull advisor. So with Christian out of the equation, you would have thought that the best position now for Max is to remain with Red Bull for next season, whatever the conversations that might have taken place so far between Mercedes, as we know, and Max's agent and advisor, a gentleman by the name of Raymond Vermeulen. You would have thought now that this would almost certainly lend itself to Max thinking, okay, Christian's gone. We've got a new guy coming in, but of course he will know Laurent Mekies. I'm sure he gets on very well with Laurent. Laurent's a great guy for anybody that doesn't really know him. I've got personally a really good relationship with him, so that's good on my part, I have to say, going forwards when it comes to getting things out of the Red Bull racing operation. But yes, all things taken into consideration, you would assume that this is the best possible situation for Max and certainly Max Verstappen fans if they really want their hero to stay with Red Bull Racing and continue his legacy with that team rather than moving on at the present time to another organisation such as Mercedes for 2026.
Just finally, of course, we do need to look ahead to the final, well, let's say the second half of the season, the final 12 rounds, and obviously the challenge that Laurent has, because Red Bull are comfortably fourth in the standings, almost 300 points behind McLaren, so they can probably rule out a constructors' title this season, Red Bull. How big a challenge does Laurent have, given what has been a difficult season so far for Red Bull?
It's now going to be huge, because you've got to think that one of the things that Christian Horner had implemented, that he'd managed to convince both the Austrian owners and the Thai owners was, guys, let's set up our own powertrain department going forward. Red Bull has been reliant for so long on a supplier of power units. So, as I say, Christian was very instrumental in that. Red Bull Powertrains now is fully operational, up and running, and gearing up towards the 2026 season, which for any new power unit supplier going in is always going to be a difficult thing to try and pull off a reasonable season. Never mind try and continue Red Bull's presence at the front of the grid and in trying to get pole positions, podiums, race victories, of course, never mind even just challenging for a championship. So with Red Bull, it's got a great platform as a racing team. Now it's taking on the powertrains department. This is something Laurent Mekies has now really got to get up to speed with really quickly. Try and appreciate. The good thing about Laurent being in that position, is that he has a very good technical background. And so he will at least be able to lend his expertise and knowledge in that area, which is perhaps something that operationally Christian Horner was not quite at that same level, shall we say. So yes, Laurent has this huge task ahead of him, but as I say, at least he will be able to tackle it from a different, maybe a fresher perspective than Christian Horner was possibly coming at it previously.
It is certainly the biggest story of the season. Of course, for those watching this F1 update, let us know your thoughts below. Has Red Bull made the right decision in parting ways with Christian Horner? It'll be really interesting to get your thoughts and opinions on this massive story. Ian, amazing stuff as always. And also to those watching, please do smash the like button, subscribe to the channel, and keep an eye on racingnews365.com for all the fallout from Horner leaving Red Bull. For myself and Ian, we'll see you later. Bye, guys.
Thanks as always for watching, listening. As Nick says, please post your comments. This is a huge topic for us, as I'm sure you can appreciate, as for you guys. And if you've got any questions, then please drop them in as well. Maybe Nick and I can do a fan Q&A at some point later this week to address your points and your queries as to what's gone on this, let's use that word again, bombshell news with Christian Horner being sacked by Red Bull. Thanks as always, folks. Take care.